Hello, I'm Leo. Recently, many online discussions about the requirement for foreigners staying in the U.S. over 30 days. Today, I'll explain. According to U.S. immigration rules, foreigners staying in the United States for 30 days or more, if they have not completed registration and fingerprinting, must complete the registration within the specified time frame. Otherwise, they may face civil or criminal penalties. This was part of an executive order signed by President Trump in early 2025, instructing the Department of Homeland Security to enforce parts of Section 262 of the U.S. immigration law. What is alien registration? Alien registration refers to the requirement under Section 262 of the U.S. immigration law that non-U.S. citizens 14 plus staying in the U.S. for more than 30 days must register biometric info, like fingerprints, with the U.S. Immigration Service within 30 days of entry. This policy is not new, but enforcement was lenient. From 2025, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has stepped up enforcement, including unregistered aliens, as key targets of immigration enforcement. Who needs to register? First, those holding non-immigrant visas but have not had their fingerprints collected, such as those under 14 who got visas via proxy, generally have not had their fingerprints collected. Secondly, foreigners entering the U.S. with an exempt status, such as Canadian citizens entering through land ports, who have not been issued an I-94 form. Thirdly, those who change their status within the country, a 12-year-old child holding a B visa who changes to F1 or F2 status in the U.S. When they entered, they must re-register when changing status. Fourth, minors who have lived in the U.S. and stay after 14. They need to re-register and get fingerprinted within 30 days of their birthday. Lastly, those who entered or are staying illegally. Regardless of status, they must register and complete the registration process. In what situations would one be considered automatically registered? First, green card holders definitely do not need to register. Secondly, adults with an I-94 entry record who usually arrive by plane generally do not need additional registration procedures. Third, those who hold a U.S. visa and have completed fingerprinting during the visa application process. Fourth, foreigners who have an employment authorization document, also known as an EAD card. And the last category includes foreigners who are in deportation proceedings and have been assigned an A number. So, to determine whether you need to register, you just need a simple method: whether your fingerprints were collected when you applied for a visa. If your fingerprints were collected, regardless of whether you have an I-94 or whether customs required you to provide fingerprints again upon entry, you are already registered. Children under 14 without fingerprint collection, even with an I-94 entry record, must register as staying over 30 days. Canadian citizens do not need a visa to enter the United States. Thus, I-94 status is irrelevant. They must register if they stay in the U.S. for more than 30 days. Hence, if children under 14 plan to stay over 30 days in the U.S., they need to register regardless of status change intent. This situation is relatively easy to overlook. Of course, the registration needs to be done by the parents on behalf of the child. The registration process is very simple. You need to access the immigration website and submit the G325 or form. If the immigration office arranges for fingerprint collection, you need to go accordingly. However, currently in the U.S. immigration system, fingerprint collection for children under 14 is typically skipped. Although fingerprints are not collected, you still need to complete the registration process. Additionally, once the child turns 14, they must re-register within 30 days after their birthday and have their fingerprints collected accordingly. Please note that the registration grace period is 30 days, and you can register on any day within those 30 days. So, if you plan to stay in the United States for more than 30 days and meet the criteria for those who need to register, please promptly visit the U.S. immigration website to register your basic information. Alright, that's all for today's content, especially for parents with children under 14 attending school in the U.S. Please be sure to pay attention to the registration timeline. I'm Leo. See you next time.